Alright guys, time for dinner. And it is a stormy night. I don't know if you can hear that rain. We are beginning the book of Judges. And it came to be after the death of Yehoshua that the children of Israel asked Jehovah, saying, Who of us should go up first against the Canaanites to fight against them? And Jehovah said, Yehudah does go up. See, I have given the land into his hand. And Yehudah said to Shimon his brother, Come up with me into my allotment, and let us fight against the Canaanites, and I myself shall go up with you into your allotment. So Shimon went up with him. And Yehudah went up, and Jehovah gave the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hand, and they struck 10,000 men at Bezek. And they found Adoni-Bezek in Bezek, and fought against him, and struck the Canaanites and the Perizzites. But Adoni-Bezek fled, and they pursued him, and caught him, and cut off his thumbs and big toes. And Adoni-Bezek said, 70 sovereigns with their thumbs and big toes cut off used to gather food under my table. As I have done, so Elohim has repaid me. And they brought him to Yerushalayim, and he died there. And the children of Yehudah fought against Yerushalayim and captured it, and struck it with the edge of the sword, and set the city on fire. And afterward the children of Yehudah went down to fight against the Canaanites, who dwelt in the mountains, in the south, and in the low country. And Yehudah went against the Canaanites who dwelt in Hebron. Now the name of Hebron was formerly Kiriath Arba, and they struck Kashai, and Ahiman, and Talmai. And from there they went against the inhabitants of Debir. Now the name of Debir was formerly Kiriath Sepher. And Caleb said, He who smites Kiriath Sepher and shall capture it, to him I shall give my daughter Achsah as wife. And Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, captured it, and he gave his daughter Achsah as wife. And it came to be, when she came in, that she urged him to ask her father for a field. And when she got off from her donkey, Caleb said to her, What is the matter? And she said to him, Give me a blessing. Since you have given me land in the south, give me also springs of water. So Caleb gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. And the children of Kenite, father-in-law of Moshe, went up from the city of palms with the children of Yehudah into the wilderness of Yehudah, which is in the Negev of Arab. And they went and dwelt among the people. And Yehudah went with Shimon his brother, and they struck the Canaanites who inhabited Sephath, and put it under the ban. So the name of the city was called Hormah. And Yehudah captured Azah and its border, and Eshkelon and its border, and Ekron and its border. And Jehovah was with Yehudah, so they took possession of the mountains. But they were unable to drive out the inhabitants of the plain, because they had chariots of iron. And they gave Hebron to Caleb, as Moshe had said, and he drove out from there the 3 sons of Anak. However, the children of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites who inhabited Yerushalayim. So the Jebusites have dwelt with the children of Benjamin in Yerushalayim to this day. And the house of Joseph also went up against Bethel, and Jehovah was with them. And the house of Joseph sent men to spy out Bethel. Now the name of the city was formerly Luz. And the watchmen saw a man coming out of the city, and they said to him, Please show us the entrance to the city, and we shall show you loving commitment. So he showed them the entrance to the city, and they struck the city with the edge of the sword, but the man and all his clans they let go. And the man went to the land of the Hittites, and built a city, and called its name Luz, which is its name to this day. And Menashe did not dispossess Beth Shean and its villages, nor Ta'anak and its villages, nor the inhabitants of Yibleam and its villages, nor the inhabitants of the Megiddo and its villages, for the Canaanites desired to dwell in that land. And it came to be when Israel was strong, that they put the Canaanites into compulsory labor, but did not completely drive them out. Neither did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites who dwelt in Gezer. So the Canaanites dwelt in their midst in Gezer. Brother. Neither did Zebulun drive out the inhabitants of Kithron, or the inhabitants of Nahalol. So the Canaanites dwelt in their midst and became compulsory labor. Neither did Asher drive out the inhabitants of Akko, nor its inhabitants, nor the inhabitants of Sidon, nor of Alab, nor of Achzib, nor of Helba, nor of Aphig, nor of Rehob. So the Asherites dwelt in the midst of the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, because they did not drive them out. Neither did Naphtali drive out the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh, nor the inhabitants of Beth Anath, but they dwelt among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, and the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh and of Beth Anath became compulsory labor for them. And the Amorites pressed the children of Dan into the mountains, for they would not allow them to come down to the valley. And the Amorites desired to dwell in Mount Heres, in Aijalon, and in Sha'albim. But when the hand of the house of Joseph became stronger, they became compulsory labor. And the border of the Amorites was from the ascent of Akrabim, from Selah and upward. And the messenger of Jehovah came up from Gilgal to Bochum, and said, I led you up from Mizraim and brought you to the land of which I swore to your fathers, and I said, I do not break my covenant with you. And as for you, do not make a covenant with the inhabitants of this land. Break down their slaughter places. But you have not obeyed my voice. What is this you have done? Therefore I said, I am not driving them out before you, and they shall be adversaries to you, and their mighty ones shall be a snare to you. And it came to be, when the messenger of Jehovah spoke these words to all the children of Israel, that the people lifted up their voice and wept. So they called the name of that place Bochum, and slaughtered there to Jehovah. Then Yehoshua dismissed the people, and the children of Israel went each to his own inheritance to possess the land. And the people served Jehovah all the days of Yehoshua, and all the days of the elders who outlived Yehoshua, who had seen all the great works of Jehovah, which he had done for Israel. And Yehoshua son of Nun, the servant of Jehovah, died 110 years old. And they buried him within the border of his inheritance at Timnath-Heres, in the mountains of Ephraim, on the north side of Mount Gaash. And all the generations were likewise gathered to their fathers, and another generation arose after them, who did not know Jehovah, nor the work which he had done for Israel. Then the children of Israel did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, and served Baals, and forsook Jehovah, Elohim of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Mizraim, and went after other mighty ones of the people who were all around them, and they bowed down to them and provoked Jehovah. So they forsook Jehovah, and served Baal and the Ashtoreths. And the displeasure of Jehovah burned against Israel. Therefore he gave them into the hands of plunderers, who despoiled them, and he sold them into the hands of their enemies all around, and they were unable to stand before their enemies any longer. Whenever they went out, the hand of Jehovah was against them for evil, as Jehovah had spoken, and as Jehovah had sworn to them, and they were distressed greatly. Then Jehovah raised up rulers who saved them from the hand of those who plundered them. However, they did not listen to their rulers either, but went whoring after other mighty ones and bowed down to them. They soon turned aside from the way in which their fathers walked. In obeying the commands of Jehovah, they did not do so. And when Jehovah raised up rulers for them, Jehovah was with the ruler and saved them from the land of their enemies all the days of the ruler, for Jehovah had compassion on their groaning because of those who oppressed them and crushed them. And it came to be when the ruler was dead that they would turn back and do more corruptly than their fathers, to go after other mighty ones, to serve them and bow down to them. They did not refrain from their practices and from their stubborn way. And the displeasure of Jehovah burned against Israel. And he said, because this nation has transgressed my covenant that I commanded their fathers, and has not obeyed my voice, I also shall no longer drive out before them any of the nations which Yahushua left when he died, in order to try Israel by them, whether they would guard the way of Jehovah to walk in them as their fathers guarded them or not. So Jehovah left those nations without driving them out at once, and did not give them into the hand of Yehoshua. And these are the nations which Jehovah left to try Israel by them, all those who had not known all the battles in Canaan, only that the generations of the children of Israel might know, to teach them battle, only those who before did not know them. 5 princes of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites, and the Sidonians, and the Hivites, who dwelt in the Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon to the entrance of Hamath. And they were to try Israel by them, to know whether they would obey the commands of Jehovah, which he had commanded their fathers by the hand of Moshe. Thus the children of Israel dwelt in the midst of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and they served their mighty ones. Thus the children of Israel did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, and forgot Jehovah their Elohim, and served the Baals and Asherahs. And the displeasure of Jehovah burned against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Cushan-Rishathaim, sovereign of Aram Naharim. And the children of Israel served Cushan-Rishathaim 8 years. And when the children of Israel cried out to Jehovah, Jehovah raised up a Savior for the children of Israel, who saved them, Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. And the Spirit of Jehovah came upon him, and he ruled Israel, and went out to battle. And Jehovah gave into his hand Cushan-Rishathaim, sovereign of Aram Naharaim, and his hand prevailed over Cushan-Rishathaim, and the land had rest for 40 years. Then Othniel, son of Kenaz, died, and the children of Israel again did evil in the eyes of Jehovah. And Jehovah made Eglon, sovereign of Moab, strong against Israel, because they had done evil in the eyes of Jehovah. And he gathered to himself the children of Ammon and Amalek, and went and struck Israel, and they took possession of the city of palms. And the children of Israel served Eglon, sovereign of Moab, 18 years. And when the children of Israel cried out to Jehovah, Jehovah raised up a Savior for them, Ehud, son of Gera, a Benjamite, a man impeded in his right hand, and by him the children of Israel sent a present to Eglon, sovereign of Moab. And Ehud made himself a sword. It was double-edged and a cubit in length, and he girded it under his long robe on his right thigh. And he brought the present to Eglon, sovereign of Moab. Now Eglon was a very fat man. And it came to be that when he had finished bringing near the present, he sent away the people bearing the present. But he himself turned back from the stone image that were at Gilgal, and said, I have a secret message for you, O sovereign. And he said, Be silent. And all those standing beside him went out from him. And Ehud came to him while he was sitting in his cool roof room. And Ehud said, I have a message from Elohim for you. So he arose from his seat. And Ehud reached with his left hand and took the sword from his right thigh and thrust it into his stomach. And the handle went in after the blade, and the fat closed over the blade, for he did not draw the sword out of his stomach, and it came out behind him. Then Ehud went out to the porch and shut the door of the upper room behind him and locked them. And when he had gone out, his servants came to look and saw the doors of the roof room were locked. So they said, He is only covering his feet in the cool roof room. And they waited until they were ashamed and saw he was not opening the doors of the upper room. So they took the key and opened them and saw their master fallen to the ground dead. And while they were delaying, Ehud escaped and passed beyond the stone images and escaped to Seirah. And it came to be when he arrived that he blew the shofar in the mountains of Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him from the mountains, with him leading them. And he said to them, Follow me, for Jehovah has given your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand. And they went down after him, and took the fords of the Jordan leading to Moab, and did not allow anyone to pass over. And they struck about 10,000 men of Moab at that time, all robust and brave men, and not a man escaped. And on that day Moab was humbled under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest for 80 years. And after him was Shamgar, son of Anath, and he struck 600 men of the Philistines with an ox goad, and he too saved Israel.